What's up, YouTubers? Welcome to my channel, Andrea René Abroad, where I talk about Peace Corps travel and working abroad. My name is Andrea, and I'm currently on a 6-month backpacking trip through Europe. I just arrived to Europe via Lisbon last week, and I've only been here for a little over a week, but I wanted to go ahead and give you all an update and recommend one of the cities that I visited that I absolutely think every single one of you should think about including in your trip to Lisbon. So just as a quick note before we get started, I do not speak Portuguese at all. I only speak English and Spanish, and so a lot of times when I say Portuguese words, you will hear me trying to pronounce them in either an English or Spanish accent. So I think what I'm gonna do for the most part is just say the Portuguese word in English, and then I will write it down below in Portuguese so as not to mess up the language more than I already have. So I stayed in Lisbon for a total of 5 nights, and during those 5 nights I was able to do 3 day trips. I did one to Sintra, to Óbidos, and to Setúbal. I actually almost did not go to Setúbal. I was thinking about my itinerary, which I had planned a few months ago, and I wasn't really sure if I wanted to actually go to Setúbal. And I am so glad that I did, because it actually ended up being my absolute favorite day trip that I took from Lisbon while I was in that area. So how can you get from Lisbon to Setúbal? Well, if you happen to be renting a car, Setúbal is only a 30-minute drive from Lisbon, so totally doable for a day trip. If you want to go by train, as I did, it is located about an hour and a half outside of Lisbon. If you plan to go to Setúbal, I definitely recommend that you go on a weekday, just because this is a Catholic country, and a lot of times these smaller towns, they're different tourist destinations and highlights will be closed on the weekends. If you decide to take the train to Setúbal, the name of your stop is Praça do Quevedo. At least in my experience, they haven't really been announcing these stops consistently, so be sure that you are keeping aware so you don't end up missing your stop. A little bit of advice for you all. I actually made a mistake when I was going to Setúbal and took the AP train, which is the high-speed train that goes up to 200 kilometers per hour. I didn't realize that there were 2 different trains to Setúbal, and it was, you could either take the high-speed direct train or just take the normal train that stops in each of the cities. Definitely just take this train that stops in each of the cities, otherwise you will be charged way higher than you need to be to get to Setúbal. The regular train to get to Setúbal will just be about 4.5 euros plus whatever you pay for the regular metro in Lisbon. Before you leave for Setúbal and you're still in Lisbon and still have access to Wi-Fi, I highly recommend that you plug in the address for the municipal council into your Google Maps so that you can easily walk from the train station to the municipal council without getting lost. My experience here in Portugal is that the street signs and road maps are not always very clear. They will be pointing in one direction, but really they mean perhaps the next intersection is where you're supposed to turn. So I've had a little bit of trouble with that, so I've really been relying on my Google Maps while I've been here. And when you get to the municipal council, you will find that one of the doors is for the council itself, but the door on the far right will be for the tourism office, and it will say Turismo on the top, so you will know that that's the office that you need to walk into. Again, this is another reason to go on a weekday. These sort of offices in the smaller cities will not always be open on the weekends, so I would highly recommend that you go on a weekday. As soon as you get to the municipal council, go ahead and request one of the maps of the city of Setúbal. I found it extremely helpful as it highlights all of the different points of interest, and then it has a very detailed map with all of the street names on the other side. So go ahead and ask them in the tourism office for this. Once you have the map of the city of Setúbal, go ahead and head directly to the fort of Saint Felipe, as this is the farthest destination from the city center. So I just find that whenever I do a day trip, it's best to go to the location that is furthest away from my bus stop or train stop or the city center, so that I have enough time to get there and come back and then decide what I can do in the city itself. Now, at the tourism office, they might try and tell you that the fort is way too far to walk, but that was not true at all. The fort of Saint Felipe was much shorter of a walk than the Moorish castle was in Sintra. So I did the Moorish castle in Sintra. That was an incredibly long walk. So this was totally doable. I would say it was about a 20-minute walk from the city center, and there is a bit of a steep climb, but really it's totally doable. The fort of Saint Felipe was originally built in 1582 and is shaped like a 6-pointed star. There is also a small capella or chapel on the inside of the fort, which is covered in azulejos. The fort itself has been beautifully restored. In the high season, you do have to pay a fee to enter, but I was able to enter for free because I was here during the month of January and it is the off season. I was pretty much the only tourist there that day. There were a few locals just having a drink at the cafe inside the fort, which is also a really beautiful cafe. But I just found that the restoration of this building really enhanced the experience. I know there's some people who are into preserving, but I really do have an appreciation for quality restoration if it helps bring income to a community. And in this case, I think it absolutely did. So I ended up having a little coffee in their little cafe just to support, since I didn't have to pay an entry fee to the fort. And have I mentioned the absolutely spectacular views from the fort? It was just absolutely incredible. You could see out into the bay, you could see the city of Setúbal below, and you could see the countryside behind you. It was just absolutely incredible panoramic views, probably the best views that I have had in Portugal so far. After you finish up at the fort, go ahead and work your way back down the hill. It will feel much quicker just because, again, there is a bit of a steep grade going up. So going down, you will find yourself back in the city very quickly. Once you work your way down the hill, I would go ahead and take out your tourism map again and then start checking out the different points of interest that are indicated on the map. I'll go ahead and mention some of my favorites just because I did check out basically all of the points of interest on the map. So the first one that I would recommend to you all after coming down from the fort of St. Felipe is the Bay House. In the Bay House, you will find an incredibly detailed museum about sea life in the area. There's a lot of information about both the different species of dolphins in the area as well as the different species of marine birds in the area. So I just found this incredibly well done and detailed. It was in English as well as in Portuguese, so it was very easy for me to navigate. The next point of interest that I would definitely highlight is the Fish and Farmers Market. This Fish and Farmers Market has actually been recognized as one of the best fish and farmers markets in the world. When I walked in, I could definitely see why. It was extremely clean as far as fish markets go, so I was really impressed by the cleanliness. And then they also have all of the azulejos all over the walls, so it's absolutely beautiful. I highly recommend that you give it a peek. After that, I really recommend that you check out the Municipal Gallery, particularly if when you go, the Convent of Jesus is still closed. Unfortunately for me, when I went to Setúbal, they were still restoring the Convent of Jesus, which is great that they're doing that, but I was a little bit bummed because that's one of the highlights of Setúbal. But luckily at the Municipal Gallery, they have collected and gathered a lot of the artwork from the Convent of Jesus so that tourists can still see the artwork that is inside. So if the Convent of Jesus is still closed when you go, absolutely make sure that you go to the Municipal Gallery. I was just floored by the incredible religious artwork that I found in the Municipal Gallery. I honestly wanted to just sit down on the floor and stare up at it for like hours. After checking out the Municipal Gallery, if you're a person who really enjoys artwork and seeing different mediums of art, I would definitely check out the Casa de Cultura. When I went, there was like an interesting cartoonish display, but I'm pretty sure that they change the artwork on display pretty regularly. But if you like art anyways, I'm sure that whatever exhibit they have at the Casa de Cultura will be interesting to you. After that, be sure to stop at the Roman ruins. These will be marked on your tourist map, and this was free entry for me as well. And what's so cool about this is you actually just need to walk into the lobby of this particular museum. They do have an exhibit on the second floor, but I didn't find it too interesting. But the lobby of the museum is actually glass floors, and through the glass floors you can see the Roman ruins. So I thought this was so cool. I had never seen a lobby set up like that in a historic city, so I thought that was very interesting to look at. The final highlight that I want to mention to you all is the History of Work Museum. So this particular museum is solely about commerce, economics, and jobs in the city of Setúbal historically. And I learned so much here at this particular museum. Basically, the city of Setúbal used to be one of the largest producers of canned sardines in Europe, if not in the world. Like, they were the center of exporting for all of these different cans of sardines. Now, The Portuguese are obsessed with canned sardines. They eat them all the time, but this was also something that they were able to produce locally and then export to other parts of the world. The work museum itself used to be a canning factory, and then it was converted into a museum. So I learned so much about this. It was also mostly women who worked in these factories. So it was very interesting to hear the experience of women workers in Portugal. So overall, I absolutely love Setúbal. If you can stay one night in Setúbal, I totally recommend that you do this, especially if you have a car rented out, because there is a natural part of Setúbal that I was unable to explore because I'm not renting a car here. But if you are renting a car, you should absolutely check out the more natural areas, the natural park that is just right outside of Setúbal. I hope I have convinced you to check out Setúbal. I, again, absolutely loved it. Hopefully by seeing all of the beautiful images in this video, you have also been convinced to check it out and include it in your trip to Lisbon. All right, folks, I will see you all next week.